everybody, welcome to my brief how-to on how to wear a peplos and what that is. Very briefly, I'm not an expert in anything, but I'm especially not an expert in ancient Greek clothing. My sources for this come from Mirelle M. Body, Dress, and Identity in Ancient Greece. I would highly recommend her book for further study. Anywho, the peplos, largely speaking, is a garment that we see represented in iconography in the Archaic period, thought to be, I believe, worn by noblewomen, so it makes sense that Sappho would be wearing it. I'll get to what a peplos is in a teeny tiny bit, but it's important to note that, like ancient Greek music theory, ancient Greek theories on how clothing worked are largely based on iconography found in vases and paintings and sculptures and stuff like that. And it's interesting to think about how artistic convention might today represent more than what really happened. I can't tell you if peploses were kind of like, I don't know, sparkly jumpsuits we see in all the commercials that not many people wear today. But yeah, it's important to consider that when we're considering historical recreation, this is like historical recreation of the evidence that survives, and that evidence is very fragmentary. And it's interesting to think about the parallels between ancient Greek music sort of being reconstructed off of what we know and guessing and stuff we see on iconography, which all might be artistic convention or what painters like to paint, and ancient Greek clothing following in a similar sort of vein, especially when it comes to the Archaic period, which was almost 2,000 years ago in the time of Sappho. So what is a peplos? It was a garment worn by men and women, though women's usually sort of reached the floor and were very long and flowing and covering, and men's could be shorter. And largely speaking, it is a large, sort of unfinished, unsewn cloth. So it would have been woven and then sort of pinned up and worn. Because sewing was hard in the ancient world, and cloth was hugely difficult to make and hugely valuable. So you didn't really mess with it after it came off the loom. So I'll go through a brief how-to of how to sort of create your own peplos, keeping in mind that women, especially noble women, would have been wearing veils and so on. So this is not hugely accurate. This is just a peplos tutorial. It's not the complete outfit. So peplos was a large sort of square, rectangle, I know my shapes, rectangle material, and it was taken by the wearer and folded over to create this sort of over blousing effects called the kolpos, or sometimes called the apoptygma, though Lee notes in her book that kolpos and apoptygma are both kolpos is more accurate, but apoptygma especially are not hugely accurate words to describe this overfold, which is hugely representative of the peplos. Like, the peplos always has this. How it appears, that changes. But so it's important to mind that, another thing is that even our words to describe this, though they may be ancient Greek, are probably not words that ancient Greek people ever used. Anywho, so you fold it over to make this sort of mysteriously named overfold. And then you take 2 pins, and skipped a step. So you take it to the side. So where it opens at the side is, just keep it there. And then you take 2 pins and you pin it above your shoulders like so. So I have some handy dandy pins, and I'm putting one here, and it's surprisingly hard to pin when you're being watched. And one here, and yeah. Well, sorry, just having peplos difficulties. Okay, and one here. So you can use safety pins. I just had some decorative pins lying around. In the ancient world, they probably would have been decorated. In the ancient world, there's evidence that peploses were dyed. I believe there's some evidence for embroidery. These were pretty garments. These were nice dresses. This was your sort of going out. I don't know about going out, but this was a dress that there is a lot of evidence for, was at times at least highly decorated. And then you take your belt. This is my graduation cord. I thought it looked vaguely cool and ancient. This was called the stone, that name we seem to be sure of. And you can either belt it over the overfold or under the overfold, or 2 designs we see on the iconography. I'm going to do it over the overfold because I think that looks cooler. Now you'll notice that this side is largely left open. I referred earlier about how there are different scarves and veils and mantles and so on that ancient Greek women wore. And it was considered, according to these conclusions and research, part of a well-dressed woman that, you know, she wasn't exposed with this overfold. Nothing was hanging out. That was a mark that seemed to be to more wild and vulgar women. So then you would take this, which I've also used to make a peplos, as you can see in other photos, and you would maybe use it as a mantle or a scarf or a cloak or some such thing. So this is kind of close to how an ancient Greek person would have dressed. One important distinction is that this peplos doesn't have any pleats. Most peploses we see in iconography has a lot of pleats. There's some debate about whether these were sewn or ironed or pressed or glued, but this peplos is pleatless. So my last instruction to delightful viewers, all zeroth of you, would be to sort of fold it over and create your own pleats. I didn't have time to do that with this. My sister's acting as videographer and she only has so much patience. But that would sort of give you a more accurate look. Yeah, so I mean, I will attach other images of peploses in the ancient world. They were very famous for being the clothes of goddesses. There's a lot of iconography of young women wearing them called the peplos chore. They're just a cool ancient style of dress, and it is possible, I don't know how likely, I'm not an expert in this, it is possible Sappho once wore something like this. Yes, so I hope you enjoy making your peploses. I hope if you go out and run through the field in your peplos and your mantle and your headband and your sandals that you make sure to wear a mask. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.